Homage to fundamental teacher Buddha Shakyamuni, homage to wisdom warrior Manjushri, homage to all lineage benevolent masters. The Dharma, infinitely profound and subtle, is rarely encountered even in a million eons. Now we are able to hear, study and follow it. May we fully realize Tathagata's true meaning. In order to liberate all sentient beings from samsara, generate supreme bodhicitta. Now, we are currently teaching the uncommon preliminaries in the words of my perfect teacher, which includes common preliminaries, uncommon preliminaries, and phawa practice. We are now entering the uncommon preliminaries. The uncommon preliminaries include confession, accumulation of merit, kusali practice, and so forth. Now we are teaching the accumulation of merit indeed. The words of my perfect teacher is extremely important. Many Buddhists, when they first begin, some people are only fixated on theory. For example, studying middle way, logic, treasury of Abhidharma, Prajnaparamita, Vinaya, and so on, but their actual practice is very poor, and without certain practice, it completely becomes like academic knowledge in modern universities. We all know that many professors in universities nowadays teach every day, and students should understand theoretically. But when it comes to actual practice, transcendental matters cannot be practiced. That's all. Buddhism must never become too rational or theoretical. If it becomes too theoretical, then practical action won't work. So, from our own perspective, sometimes we feel that when first entering the Buddhist path, starting from the preliminaries, so throughout one's life, one personally considers preliminaries especially important. There's another problem. Our nearly 20 years of study and contemplation, much time was spent on theory. For example, memorizing every day, teaching and examining, debating, composing treatises, and so forth. If too much time is spent on these aspects, it seems that genuine practice also has certain obstacles. Therefore, it's extremely important for us to combine theory with practice. When beginning study and contemplation, many people don't understand this point, and this point is particularly important. When you want to practice nowadays, many people start from the highest level of realization. For those with especially sharp faculties, this should be possible, but for us ordinary sentient beings, we indeed need to start from precious human life, gradually practicing step by step. This is very important. So if we have completely perfected 100-syllable mantra, prostrations, refuge, and bodhicitta, then we begin to enter the practice of accumulating merit. The great masters of the past particularly emphasized accumulating merit. Especially our current mandala offering practice should be applied in our practical actions, not just practicing 500,000 preliminaries. Whenever you go to a particularly auspicious place, or when you go to a pure Dharma center in front of Buddha statues, in monasteries offering more than 100 mandalas yourself, or 1,000 mandalas, many people in our Tibetan Buddhism, perhaps you've seen this too when arriving at Mount Wutai, because Mount Wutai is Manjushri's sacred place. They particularly value accumulating merit and purifying negative karma there. So many people offer 100,000 mandalas in front of that great stupa. When you go to Bodh Gaya in India, you often see this too. When we went before, it wasn't yet open at that time, in 1990. But even then, there were quite many Tibetans and foreign Westerners. They were all offering 100,000 mandalas in front of Bodh Gaya. Quite many, moreover. The practice of mandala offering should be carried with you at all times. Why did Atisha always carry a wooden mandala plate with him, offering wherever he went at any time? Many practitioners here also often carry mandala plates with them. So the mandala plates I made this year, actually when offering slightly larger ones, are more convenient. But for carrying with you, I think perhaps some people here carry them with them. In the future, when you truly become a practitioner wherever you are, when conditions ripen slightly, including setting up some Buddha statues in your own shrine room, at this time arrange 5 offerings in front. If the 5 offerings are not complete, offering flowers and incense, these individual items should be quite convenient. In this way, the merit of offering mandalas is particularly great. So we think that through practicing mandala, offering this time, everyone should have a relatively new understanding Otherwise, many people don't value accumulating merit. Some people keep saying, everything is emptiness. What is there to accumulate? If we truly reach such a high level of realization, that would be fine. Then we could also say everything is emptiness. What food is there to eat? What money is there to earn? Everything is emptiness. Theoretically saying this is also possible, but actually you still can't empty it. You still have to desperately go earn money. So in this lifetime, for example, each person present today, each person's merit is indeed different. Some people indeed are quite poor in all aspects of this life. Some people from all aspects should be said to be very good. What is the reason for this? It's because the merit we accumulated in past lives is different, and our future lives are also extremely long. At that time, it also depends on our present genuine accumulation of merit. This is still very important. Some people indeed have quite a lot of conceptual thoughts. Some people have said this before. What's the point of mandala offering? You're just taking rice and rubbing it here. It doesn't necessarily have any merit. You should still do what you ought to do yourself. You should earn the money you ought to earn. If you don't make effort yourself, what use is just offering mandalas? Actually, this kind of conceptual thinking is also understandable. Before, the Buddha in the older Sutra of Parables also had this. Once when the Buddha went to the city, there was one household. The wife in this household had faith in the Buddha, while the husband was half believing and half doubting. That wife, when she saw the Buddha's excellent and magnificent body, immediately generated faith and offered him food. After the Buddha enjoyed it, he dedicated merit to her and spoke some verses. Planting 1 grows 10, planting 10 grows 100, planting 100 grows 1,000. Thus, growing 10,000, growing millions, one attains the path of seeing truth. After speaking such verses, the meaning is planting 1 virtuous root can grow 10, planting 10 virtuous roots grows 100, planting 100 gets 1,000, planting 1,000 gets 10,000. Thus, merit continuously increases, and finally, through such conditions, one can truly see the truth. At that time, the husband heard the Buddha's verses. He felt it was somewhat impossible. How could this be? He deliberately went to the Buddha to ask, how could 1 small seed become 10, 10 become 100? How could the seed be 1 and the fruit become 10? Where is there such a situation? The Buddha asked, are you from the city? He said, I am from the city. In the city, is there a tree called Nyagrota? He said, yes, there is such a tree. What are the seeds of this tree like? He said, like mustard seeds, very small. Then what are its fruits like? Its branches and leaves are particularly tall and large, reaching 40 li in height, and has hundreds of thousands of fruits. The Buddha then asked back, if its seed is so small, how can it grow into such a large fruit? And if such inanimate causes and conditions on the earth can mature so extensively, then how could merit accumulated in sentient beings' mind streams, sustained by joyful mind, and directed towards supreme objects not have extremely great results? With such questioning, he also became enlightened, and both of them attained the fruit of sainthood through this. There is such a story. So we worldly people occasionally have some doubts about the Buddhist principle of cause and effect. This is correct and a normal phenomenon. But this kind of doubt cannot persist for a long time. If it persists for a long time, it may gradually become like cancer cells, eventually generating wrong views and destroying all virtuous roots of self and others. This is also very unreasonable, because true merit is indeed extremely rare. The Buddha, in the collection of deliberate sayings, also said, all merits are truly wonderful, their fruits are extremely excellent and sublime. Nothing compares to the liberation of merit, therefore one should accumulate merit. This kind of liberation is incomparable. After we create merit, we will definitely attain liberation. Therefore, as practitioners, we must create this kind of merit. When we have the opportunity now, we must accumulate merit. This is very important. So, our mandala offering has a certain relationship with accumulating merit. Because through the method of mandala offering, in everyone's mind stream, if you have real wealth, that is of course very good. If not, visualization is basically the same. The method of mandala offering in this preliminary practice guide is neither particularly extensive nor particularly brief, but I suggest, as I have translated before, I hope those present should still look at A Guide to the Words of My Perfect Teacher, in A Guide to the Words of My Perfect Teacher, some specific details entering and exiting meditation or entering and leaving the session, some specific practices, Khenpo Ngagchung, according to Patrul Rinpoche's pith instructions, has already taught the actual practice when convenient. In the front of A Guide to the Words of My Perfect Teacher, I placed a biography of Khenpo Ngagchung. When you have time, it's best to look at that Khenpo Ngagchung situation when offering mandalas at that time. I forget some of it now, but indeed at that time some of the stories inside were very touching. It's best if you look at it. Some lay practitioners don't have books. Go online when you return. Now in the world, so many people go online every day. They're just messing around online with all sorts of things that have no meaning. Very few people truly practice and utilize it properly. In Khenpo Ngagchung's story, it says the Khenpo had already completed 100,000 Vajrasattva mantras after completing it. He went to his teacher, asking whether to continue practicing. The teacher told him, now take a break. About taking a break, the way of the Bodhisattva also teaches. There are two ways of taking a break. One is after a task is completely finished, you can put it down completely. This is one way of taking a break. Another way of taking a break is when you're doing a virtuous deed and finally become particularly exhausted physically and mentally, then rest appropriately for a period. This is also a way of taking a break. Later, Khenpo Ngagchung took a break for about 10 days, rested for about 10 days. Then he went to his teacher to ask how to practice now. The teacher told him to continue practicing mandala, offering for accumulating merit, the specific practice of mandala offering. At that time, Khenpo Ngagchung's conditions might not have been very good. His teacher Lungtok Tenpen Nyima was a disciple of Patrul Rinpoche. He lent him some supports of the Three Jewels Buddha statues, Condensed Transcendent Wisdom, Guhyagarbha Tantra, and Kadampa Stupa. Kadampa Stupa and Bodhi Stupa have slightly different shapes, but they're basically the same. Kadampa Stupa was brought from Indonesia by a Tisha in the past. So I'm thinking that many stupas in Thailand and present-day Indonesia, the pointed stupas are quite similar to Kadampa Stupas, but it's not completely like that. I also mentioned in Travels in Thailand before whether the origin of Kadampa Stupa has a certain relationship with Thailand, although I haven't seen reliable history, but it's indeed different from the other 8 great stupas. Of course, now when we request the 8 great stupas, any of the stupas inside is fine, or Kadampa stupas are also fine. These are called supports of the 3 jewels. Khenpo Ngagchung's teacher lent him all the supports of the 3 jewels, and he taught him some principles combining Kadampa Stupa with the 3 trainings of discipline, concentration and wisdom. Then he specially lent him a statue of omniscient Longchenpa. Inside the statue of omniscient Longchenpa were Longchenpa's brain matter and Jigme Lingpa's hair. Inside were such blessed contents, particularly blessed, he said, this is also lent to you during your mandala offering practice. At the same time, he gave him some lamp wicks for offering lamps and so forth. After Khenpo Ngagchung returned, following his teacher's instructions, he began to clean his house thoroughly. Generally, when we practice mandala offering, if you have a separate shrine room, clean the shrine room thoroughly. If not, when you usually practice, you should still do some cleaning to make it relatively clean. Practice this way. At that time, I remember Khenpo Ngagchung prepared offerings for mandala practice. He seemed to use 4 loads of grain, quite a lot. For example, what a yak can carry is called 1 load of grain. 4 loads are approximately 400 katis. What 1 yak can carry, approximately 400 katis, or 600 to 700 katis. He prepared this much grain and then began to practice. When he practiced to about 30,000 repetitions, he went to his teacher. The teacher required him to continue practicing. Later he once dreamed that Dharma protector Dorje Yudron took him to a pure place where he met Longchenpa. Longchenpa sang him a great perfection song with Ah at the beginning and Ah at the end, about 6 verses of particularly beautiful verses. He taught him, When he was about to return, he had already awakened. After awakening, he was also very joyful. Around the statue of Longchenpa, there were also many relics. After he completed this practice, he returned all his teacher's things to his teacher. After returning them, his teacher repeatedly asked, "Did you see Longchenpa?" He forgot about that dream and said, "I didn't see him." Only after his teacher asked 3 times did he say, "I saw him in a dream." His teacher said all the essential points of the great perfection had been transmitted to him by Longchenpa. And among his disciples, he also praised him approximately like this. It might be more detailed than this. When you have time, take a look. As for Khenpo Ngakchung, indeed, some histories say he is an incarnation of Vimalamitra. Logically speaking, he might not even need to practice. But indeed in his practice process, he was particularly earnest, always practicing completely and perfectly. Therefore, when we now have time and opportunity, it's best to complete the 500,000 preliminaries perfectly. If there are some individuals, I met some volunteer workers yesterday, indeed many of our volunteer workers, not to mention practicing Mandala offering, don't even have time for regular practice, including working overtime at night constantly. This might temporarily be unavoidable. Later, especially setting aside a period to practice preliminaries is also possible. But now basically everyone should understand the practice methods. So for others, if there are no special circumstances, everyone should still practice and don't keep procrastinating. Sometimes it seems that whether we humans can survive in this world is really hard to say. When we have opportunity, we should still practice. Otherwise, many of us say, "Oh, I'm not free now. Now I need to do some work, do some things. After I get old, then I'll practice well." Yesterday, a leader came to my home. That leader is a very good person, but his view is somewhat different from my perspective. He said, "Now, because I'm a state cadre, I work diligently, doing some meaningful things for the people and the country. I want to work well until age 60. This is what I'm thinking. Between 60 and 70, I want to accompany my family. At that time, after retirement, I'll travel and enjoy family happiness. I'm preparing to start truly practicing from age 70. At that time, I should be worthy, preparing for death and accumulating merit. So I'm preparing to start truly practicing well from age 70. On the surface, I still praised him greatly, saying, yes, it should be this way. Actually, I was also a bit cunning, but in my heart, whether he can really practice at that time, because for a person to live to 70 is also not easy. If he really lives to 70, whether he can truly practice at that time is hard to say. So many of us, I think many people present might also be like this, especially some young people and those currently working, "Oh, I'll work well now. My children should go to university, they get married and established, and after that's done, I'll gradually retire later. After retirement, gradually this and that. Around 70 or 80, I'll truly practice." What it becomes at that time is hard to say, so we should still practice whenever conditions ripen. Everyone should try to practice. If we don't practice, indeed just thinking about liberation is hard to say. Collection of deliberate sayings also says people with shallow merit are stubborn and difficult to transform, and after death fall into lower realms. Such people are like trying to get oil from sand. True. Happiness cannot be obtained at all in future lives, because if one has no merit at all, this will be taught later in the Mandala practice. So regardless of which aspect, especially regarding preliminaries according to Patrul Rinpoche and Guru Rinpoche, many lineage masters particularly emphasize preliminaries. And indeed it is so. People who practice preliminaries particularly well have very stable practice that will never change. But if preliminaries are not practiced stably, temporarily, they seem to often see various kinds of experiences, some small psychic powers and so forth. But as time gradually passes, in the end they all disappear without a trace. So building a good foundation is very important for us. Now let's begin to briefly explain some of the practices here. Mandala is divided into the mandala to be practiced and the mandala to be offered. Actually, on the surface, to be practiced should be what one practices oneself. To be offered is what's offered, but actually here, to be practiced, because we need to practice. To this extent, the mandala placed on the shrine is called the mandala to be practiced. First, on the base of the mandala to be practiced, place 5 piles of offerings. We also have 5-pile mandalas below for 5 piles. Generally there are Dharmakaya mandala, Nirmanakaya mandala, Sambhogakaya mandala. Dharmakaya mandala is just 1 pile. In the Nyingtik tradition, there's a special verse for teaching the Dharmakaya with 1 pile. 5 piles can represent the 5 Buddhas, or the center is Mount Meru. Around it are the 4 continents. Visualizing this way is also possible. This is called 5-pile mandala. Visualize the pile in the center as Buddha Vairocana. Surrounded by the assembly of the Tathagata family, visualizing like Mount Meru, visualize the front pile as Vajra Akshobhya surrounded by the Vajra family assembly. Visualize the southern pile as Ratnasambhava surrounded by the Jewel family assembly. Visualize the western pile as Amitabha, the Buddha of infinite light, surrounded by the Lotus family assembly. Visualize the northern pile as Amoghasiddhi surrounded by the Action family assembly. This is our visualization of the 5 Buddha families. When placing mandala on top, visualizing 5 Buddha families this way is also possible. Or like clearly visualizing the refuge field, visualize the central pile as Padmasambhava, inseparable from the root guru with all the great perfection lineage masters seated in stacked arrangement, visualizing this way. Visualize the front pile as Buddha Shakyamuni, surrounded by the 1002 Buddhas of the good Kalpa. Before, when we visualized the refuge field, in front was Buddha Shakyamuni and the Buddhas of the 3 times. Here the Buddhas of 3 times means among the 1000 Buddhas. 4 Buddhas have already appeared, and 996 Buddhas are yet to come. This is the meaning. Visualize the pile on the right as the 8 great bodhisattvas surrounded by the Mahayana Noble Sangha. Visualize the pile on the left as the 2 principal Shravakas, namely Shariputra and Maudgalyayana, surrounded by the Hinayana Noble Sangha. Visualize the pile at the back as brilliantly shining grid shelves with layers upon layers of all the volumes of the Great Perfection Tantras and the 3 Pitakas of Sutra, Vinaya, and Abhidharma. Regardless of which visualization, the mandala to be practiced should be placed on the altar. If one has the conditions, if you have 2 mandalas, one to be practiced and one to be offered actually when offering in front, it's best to use 37 piles to offer after offering 37 piles. According to our past lineage, recite the 3-kaya mandala once more. The 3-kaya mandala includes that 5-pile mandala just mentioned. Then recite the 3-kaya mandala once and offer it on the altar. This altar I drew here before. The altar has 3 levels on top, as shown in The Words of My Perfect Teacher. There's a Buddha statue and scriptures, Prajna Paramita Sutras, condensed transcendent wisdom. If you have Mahaprajna Paramita Sutra when offering mandalas, Mahaprajna Paramita Sutra, or the Tripitaka or tantric texts like the 7 treasuries, these are all fine. A Buddha statue of Shakyamuni Buddha and a stupa. On the top altar, place the supports of the 3 jewels. Then, on the next level, offer the mandala to be practiced. Place it in the center. On the next level down, place the 5 offerings. Place them there. This is also possible. When offering, is the position somewhat. When placing the 5 offerings below, it should be from our left side. When offering, start from the left. When collecting, start from the right. These are called the 5 offerings. Food offering, flower offering, water offering. Water offering is best with 7 cups. If 7 cups are not complete, if you really can't afford them, 1 cup is also fine. Then 1 lamp and incense. The mandala to be practiced is generally visualized this way. If economic conditions permit, arrange 5 offerings and so forth surrounding the mandala to be practiced. This method is quite clear in Khenpo Nakchung's A Guide to the Words of My Perfect Teacher, offered in front of Buddha, statues, scriptures, and stupas. If economic conditions are limited and you don't have a mandala to be practiced, that's also fine. Just clearly visualizing in your mind is also possible. If you only have 1 mandala plate and not 2 mandala plates. Some teachers do it this way. First offer the mandala to be practiced and place it on the altar, then come down and begin offering yourself. First symbolically place it on top. This is also possible. Or offer the mandala to be practiced once every morning in the evening after you've finished all your offerings when you sleep. Take it down and put it away. This is also possible. Or some feel that collecting it every day like this has certain difficulties. Keep it there continuously until you finish practicing mandala. The other day a Dharma friend asked, a certain Dharma friend is preparing to move, but the mandala to be practiced has been placed there continuously. Can he move it over there? I said there should be no problem. Collecting it daily is possible. Afraid it can't be moved continuously if it's moved, would it? So now some people, because they haven't particularly studied many principles, are also particularly afraid. Actually, there's no need to be so afraid. Whatever is in one's mind should have its meaning. The key is that our offerings for mandala should preferably use rice. And in our stores there are some mung beans and red beans. These might be better. The so-called precious substances we buy now are too big. They all slide down with a swoosh, and holding them in hand, if they're particularly large, it might be inconvenient. Rice, barley, wheat, these grains might be better. For your mandala to be practiced, use precious substances to offer. After offering, leave it there continuously. Having more precious substances is fine. When we usually offer, add some precious substances inside, symbolically add some coral. Whatever you have can be added a little, but mainly use rice. This way might be slightly more convenient, according to your own situations. No matter what, you should probably still, if conditions allow, use all new materials. For example, what I used today for mandala offering, put it in a bag, then use new grain. Always like this. Look at Khenpo Sodargye. Using 4 loads, that's probably several hundred katis. So if we ourselves are not stingy, for example, change it once a week or once a day. Some teachers dry this, wash it, and after washing, dry it. After drying, use that again to offer. There are also such methods. But no matter what, it's best to first check the offerings. Whether there are any unclean things inside, should carefully examine the offerings and grains first. In the past, many old practitioners, when preparing to offer mandalas, they would prepare barley or rice in advance, dry them well, and wash them thoroughly. Remove all impurities completely, then begin the offering. There are such behaviors. Just now, we understood why it's offered on the altar. Visualizing it as either 5 Buddhas, the 5 Buddhas of East, South, West, North, and Center, because offering Mount Meru and such in front of 5 Buddhas has great merit. Or as explained in the words of my perfect teacher, the 3 jewels, Padmasambhava, Buddhas of 3 times, Mahayana Bodhisattvas and Hinayana Arhats, then all the scriptural volumes and so forth, offering in front of the supports of the 3 jewels. When we usually visualize this offering of mine is mainly in front of the supports of the 3 jewels to purify negative karma and accumulate merit, offering them all of Mount Meru and all the wealth of the 4 continents that far exceeds our gold, silver, hundreds of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars. So this merit is indeed very great. When we learn about offerings, we often teach about the merit of mental offerings. So first we explain the first one, the mandala, to be practiced. Below, the mandala to be offered is divided into several. First is the 37-pile mandala. First I'll explain. We'll practice it later, which might be slightly more convenient. In the process of offering mandalas, hold the mandala in the left hand and wipe the base plate with the right wrist for a long time. At this time, generally holding the mandala with the left hand is commonly accepted. But when we hold prayer beads in Khenpo Sodargye's A Guide to the Words of My Perfect Teacher, it says to hold prayer beads with the right hand. But holding prayer beads with the right hand is particularly inconvenient. I've tried before. But in many of our teachers' lineages, they use the left hand to hold prayer beads. Later we can try both methods. Generally speaking, using this method might be better. Holding the mandala plate while wiping, at this time in the left hand. Otherwise, if you hold it with the right hand, it seems particularly inconvenient. But apart from Khenpo Sodargye, I haven't seen this mentioned elsewhere. So when we hold rice, especially if this is a crystal prayer bead, then this sound is also a bit, I feel this way. So probably most use the left hand to hold prayer beads. Hold the mandala plate with the left hand and begin wiping the base of the mandala with the right wrist for a long time. Actually, there should be purity of object of offering, purity of offerings, and purity of intention. We taught before in The Way of the Bodhisattva. To maintain the precious mind, I now offer to the Tathagatas. the immaculate precious Dharma, and the ocean of merit of Buddha's sons. This explains the 3 jewels I seem to remember. A guide to the words of my perfect teacher specifically quotes this scriptural authority. When we offer mandalas, the intention must be pure. The intention is not, I want to get rich, or I want this and that. The object of offering is pure. It's the 3 jewels. Not some non-Buddhist or other evil demons and such. My offerings are also without stinginess, very pure, precious objects, so having the 3 purities is very important. At the same time, focus your mind on the object without scattering elsewhere, and recite the 7-branch offering. Generally speaking, first recite a 7-branch offering, then begin offering mandalas. Before offering mandalas, also recite a confession prayer once. Confession prayer, some have liturgies. If there's no liturgy, specifically recite the 100-syllable mantra once. When offering the 37 peel mandala, it says above, all negative actions of body, speech and mind created by oneself and others since beginningless time, like wiping clean the dust on the mandala, all are purified. Om Vajrasattva Samaya, Manupalaya. Recite the 100-syllable mantra once. After the 100-syllable mantra begin. Om Vajra Bhumi Ahum. Start reciting the 37 piles. So at the beginning, when offering the mandala to be practiced, as I just recited, think in your heart all negative actions of the 3 doors created by yourself and others, all beings, since beginningless time. Just like we wipe the dust from the mandala, all becomes clean. Actually, the mandala is compared to one's own mind stream. The defilements on top are compared to our obscurations. Through wiping, one's karmic obscurations are purified. Many great masters of the Kadampa tradition in the past actually considered mandala offering as one of the best skillful methods for confession. There are also such sayings. It's not that there are impure things on the mandala plate that need wiping, but rather through this kind of ascetic practice and training, purifying the defilements of the 2 obscurations in one's mind stream. In the past, the great masters of the Kadampa tradition, when offering mandalas, first used the front of their wrists to wipe the mandala plate. When the front of the hand, generally the front, some pith instruction books say there are wisdom channels. Wiping the wisdom channels opens wisdom. There are also such effects after the front of the hand develops blisters and sores. Then use the sides to wipe. After the sides also develop blisters and sores, use the back to wipe. Using the back of the hand to wipe, and so forth. I told the story of Lama Tsongkhapa a few days ago. It was also like this. Many great masters were all like this. Therefore, when wiping the mandala plate, absolutely cannot use other cloths, using some felt, soft cloth, etc. to wipe. This won't work. Only the wrist can be used to wipe. This is the tradition of the great masters of the Kadampa tradition of the past. We should also follow this practice. Next, we begin to place offering piles. The following 37-pile mandala liturgy was composed by Sakya Dharma King, Lord Chogyal Pakpa. When he composed it, and under what circumstances. I've looked through some histories but haven't found specific details, so what we use below, I said the other day it was Mifam Rinpoche's 3-kaya mandala. But I thought about it later. Let's use the 7-pile mandala, the original Sai Bucheng's Hishyung Midudza. Plus, it's quite smooth to recite. Most find it more convenient. Otherwise, the verses in illuminating the path to liberation are not very... Of course, there's no difference in Mifam Rinpoche's Vajra words either. At that time, Khenpo Ngakchung also was it Jamyang Khyentse Wangpos, or the ground covered with flowers. One later, he still chose the latter one, composed by King Trisong Detsen. When Padmasambhava came to the Tibetan areas, he offered all his retinue and wealth to Padmasambhava and began reciting Sayi Bucheng's Hishyung Mi Dudza Rirab Ling Shi Nida Gyan Padi Sangye Shing Dumul Ne Bulwayi Dro Kun Nyen Dayang La She Par She. Some individuals also recite mantras. But when we generally practice, not reciting mantras is also fine. Exactly one verse for one offering. This way is more convenient. Later, we can try it a little. The 37-pile mandala was composed by Sakya Dharma King Chogyal Pakpa because it's simple and easy to practice, both old and new schools. Gelugpa also uses this. Sakyapa is also like this, including Kagyupa. Before, when the Dharma king went to many Kagyu monasteries, 37 pile mandala offerings are practiced by all schools. Here there's also the tradition of first offering 37 piles. Therefore, it should be done this way. Moreover, whether new school or old school, each has many distinctive mandala offering liturgies, especially in the Nyingma school. Each terma has, for example, Ratna Lingpa, Chogyo Lingpa, and Karma Lingpa. Each terma has different, many mandala offering liturgies, including many of our Jinchuan Cheng masters in their writings. There are particularly many liturgies. In each terma of the Nyingma school, there are also different mandala offering liturgies. Our own Nyingtik tradition is the same. The liturgy for extensively offering 3 kaya mandalas is by omniscient Longchenpa, personally taught in the various heart essences, very profound instructions, so no matter which liturgy is used for offering, there's no contradiction, all are fine. When offering 37 piles, first, Om Vajrabhumi Ahum, Wangchen Sergi Sa Jir Om, the pure ground, great sovereign golden earth. Should I say this in Chinese or Tibetan, I'll just say it this way for now. At the beginning, Om Vajra Bhumi Ahum, I think it's later. Let me explain briefly to everyone here. When saying Om Vajra Bhumi Aham, generally this method might be used. First hold it like this, then Wangchen Sergi Sa Jir Om, the pure ground, great sovereign golden earth. At the same time hold the mandala plate with the left hand, generally like this. Should hold it using this method, then with the right hand, the largest ring among those rings. The largest ring is called the Vajra, Iron Ring Mountain, the ring of Iron Ring Mountain. Hold it in hand like this. At the same time, hold the mandala plate with the left hand. Sprinkle pure substances and fragrant water with the right hand. Generally, we probably don't say it this way now. In Khenpo Ngakchung's biography, there's also explanation of pure substances. Then, Om Vajra Raksha Aham, with right hand thumb and ring finger, take a little flour or a few grains of rice, then circle clockwise on the base plate. Some say counterclockwise 3 times, clockwise 3 times. Khenpo Ngakchung also said this, but in our general tradition, circling clockwise 3 times like this is fine. Finally, place that bit of rice from your hand in the center. Place the rice in the center. If there's an iron ring mountain to place, it can be placed at that time. Om Vajrabhumi Ahum. Below, recite the liturgy while piling up. When piling up, the words of my perfect teacher has a special diagram. East faces oneself. First place Mount Meru in the center. Then begin with Purvavideha, Jambudvipa, Aparagodanya, Uttarakuru. When placing, place them in this sequence. Below, the 4 directions and 4 corners. 4 directions and 4 corners. This is quite clear. But when we actually offer basically pouring like this is fine. You can't be very meticulous. No matter which school, whether Gelugpa or Sakyapa, when they offer, Mount Meru is first in the center, then in east-southwest, continuously placing inside. When it becomes full, the Iron Ring Mountain was just placed. When this becomes full, place the second ring, then place the third ring. When reaching Sun and Moon later, after Sun and Moon begin placing the golden top. Then with both hands, offer on the altar, or offer in front of the teacher, actually mandala, logically speaking. For example, if a teacher gives teachings, offer in front of the teaching teacher. If a teacher gives empowerment, offer in front of the empowerment teacher. If we practice mandala, make offerings in front of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions. Its meaning should be offering all the offerings of the entire 3,000-fold universe. Now let's look at this here. Purvavideha, Jambudvipa, Aparagodanya, Uttarakuru, Deha and Videha, Kamara and Aparakamara, Shata and Utramantrina, Kurava and Kaurava. After all, the 4 great continents are complete. Jewel mountain, wish-fulfilling tree, wish-fulfilling cow, spontaneous harvest. Golden wheel, wish-fulfilling jewel, precious queen, precious minister, precious elephant, precious horse, precious general, treasure vase. We'll look at those piles later. 4 directions and 4 corners, 4 directions and 4 corners. It's always like this after. There should be that diagram in our The Words of My Perfect Teacher. Right, good. You can tell at a glance. Goddess of beauty, goddess of garlands, goddess of song, goddess of dance. Sun, moon, precious umbrella, banner, victorious in all directions. All these perfect enjoyments of gods and humans I offer to the great kind and qualified root and lineage, supreme teachers. Hereafter, for example, if you're seeking empowerment for seeking empowerment, offer to the greatly kind teacher and root lineage teachers. For receiving teachings, for upholding the wonderful Dharma and so forth, speak this way. Actually, in the 37 piles we just discussed, Master Fazun specifically had a record of contemplating the practice of mandala offering. Master Fazun explained all the content and visualization inside who wrote this record of contemplating practice. I'm not particularly clear, but he translated such principles which can also be used for reference. Below, when reciting Mount Meru, king of mountains, place one pile in the center. Then when placing Purva Videha and other four great continents, take your own direction or the direction of the object of offering as east. Generally, we take our own direction as east, Purva Videha on our own side, or placing Purva Videha on the opposite side is also possible. No matter what, you must start from the east, proceeding clockwise in order. When placing offering piles representing Deha and Videha and other subcontinents. For each continent, from east to west, from left to right, for example, Purva Videha. On my side, first from my left, then right, Jambudvipa is also from left-right. Aparagodanya is also left-right. Place this way. According to the sequence, then place offering piles for eastern jewel mountain, southern wish-fulfilling tree, western wish-fulfilling cow, northern spontaneous harvest. Later, I don't know if some teachers explain the specifics clearly. If some don't understand, you can ask me after class. Teachers of each class should still guide when the time comes. This time we must learn how to offer mandalas, then place offering piles representing the 7 royal treasures and treasure vase in sequence in the 4 directions and 4 corners. 4 directions and 4 corners, 4 directions and 4 corners, you'll understand immediately when you see that diagram. Representing the 4 outer offering goddesses like Goddess of Beauty. Also place in the 4 directions, representing the 4 inner offering goddesses like Goddess of Flowers. Also pile in the 4 corners, then east, west, south, north in sequence are offering piles of sun, moon, precious umbrella, victorious banner of activities. At the very end, when reciting all these perfect enjoyments of gods and humans, at this time, there's nothing special, just casually pour rice in the center and place the golden top pile up offerings on top without any gaps. If there's a jewel top, it can be placed at this time, finally placed on top, when saying, I offer to the greatly kind and qualified root and lineage supreme teachers, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Here some people say, we need to add perfectly complete, completely pleasing. But my supreme teacher, Patrul Rinpoche's supreme teacher, Jigme Gyalwe Nyugu, didn't say this. It's not mentioned in the root text and is superfluous. This seems to be absent in our recitation too. I see it's also not in Larungar prayer book regarding the visualization sequence of mandala when my teacher gave personal guidance. He taught just this much. Patrul Rinpoche's teacher's instructions were quite extensive, but here he himself probably felt it wasn't particularly extensive. Just this much, there's no other explanation, so I haven't written more here. Patrul Rinpoche said this, so I won't teach more today either. In the guidance text, see Commentary on the Condensed Meaning for further elaboration. Actually, in our Paleo tradition, many preliminary practice guidances and records regarding mandala offering practices are quite numerous, but fundamentally, the meaning is all the same. When we offer, everyone using 7-pile mandala as the main practice is fine. This time I originally thought 3-kaya mandala might not be familiar to many people, might as well use 7-pile mandala for counting. 7-pile mandala counting should be. Actually, mandala is quite tiring, but it's indeed very necessary. I hope everyone will definitely complete it. So if you want to understand extensively, you might refer to Commentary on the Condensed Meaning. I think I'll teach up to here today. Also, later you should look at the 7-pile mandala verse. We should focus on reciting this. Saibu Cheng's Hishungmi Dudza. The ground covered with flowers and perfume. Mount Meru. 4 continents, adorned with sun and moon. Visualizing as Buddha fields, I make this offering. May all beings traverse to Buddha fields. This verse is best recited in Tibetan. When we offer mandalas, it's best to recite in Tibetan. The meaning is first adorn the earth with incense and flowers. On the earth there's Mount Meru and 4 continents, totaling 5, then adorned with sun and moon. This is why it's 7 piles. Visualize all the wealth of Mount Meru, sun, moon, and 4 continents, offering to Buddhas of the 3 times. May all beings be able to journey to pure realms. This is the content of this verse, 7-pile mandala. I might have said the other day that some of our Dharma friends might have already memorized Mifam Rinpoche's one, but that's also fine. Memorizing one verse, offering this, some 2-3 kaya mandala, offering some 2, mainly using 7-pile mandala. I just said, this is the personal Vajra words of Dharma King, Trisong Detsen. So when offering mandalas, Khenpo Sodargye also said, one must choose a noble being's Vajra words, otherwise there's not much meaning. Later when we offer, let's rest a bit and then do a simple demonstration. Generally when we offer mandalas among the offerings, there can be white ones, mung beans, red beans, also some precious substances, various precious things. Mandala plates are generally, if one's conditions and circumstances are good, gold, silver or other copper, aluminum are all fine. Ancient great masters in the past might not have had these conditions, like Khenpo Sodargye just mentioned in that case. Using stone slabs and wooden boards is also possible. What we're teaching now is 37-pile mandala. Why do we teach it this way? There should be a kind of mainly practiced using the wrist. When we usually count, it's somewhat different from the mandala to be practiced. When we count this way might be more convenient. If you hold it with the right hand, it's not very convenient. If with the left hand, holding prayer beads like this first, after we finish offering 37-pile mandala, place it on the altar, then begin offering 7-pile mandala, because it requires 100,000 repetitions, the project is still quite large, so one should also have speed and maintain quality and quantity requiring such a process. Generally, before, each time after offering the mandala to be practiced, these rings don't need to be used, basically set aside. When we're actually practicing, basically none are used. So regarding recitation, what I just mentioned is 7-pile mandala. If I recite in Tibetan, the first line means flowers and perfume cover the earth. Sayi bucheng si shungmi dudza. Then the second line, rirablingshi nidagen padi. Mount Meru, 4 continents adorned with sun and moon. Then the third line, Sangye Shang Dumul Nebulwa Yi. Visualizing as Buddha fields I make offering, may all beings traverse to Buddha fields. When we recite the first line, Sayibu Chengs Hishung Mi Dudza, should wipe like this with the hand, Sayibu Chengs Hishung Mi Dudza. At this time, wipe as much as possible. Then, Rirabling Shini Dagyen Padi. When reciting the second line, begin offering here. Generally speaking, the center is Mount Meru, then east, south, west, north, plus sun and moon totaling 7 piles. But when we recite quickly, we can't see clearly, only the center pile is clearly visible, then scatter starting from the east. During the second and third lines, try to scatter all the rice completely. When reaching the fourth line, your right hand begins grabbing rice from below again. Then at this time the left hand needs to count, because after completing one offering, at this time you count. Begin counting once on the prayer beads, offering this way. Actually for 100,000 through this method, for example, when reciting the first line, begin wiping. During the second and third lines, scatter on top. During the fourth line, left hand holds prayer beads, right hand begins grabbing rice from below. When grabbing rice from below, everything in front has already been poured out. Some wipe at this time too. There are also such methods, but generally not wiping at this point is also fine. With so many people watching me, I'm a bit embarrassed. It should be okay now. When we recite 37 Pila Mandala, first Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya. Recite the 100-syllable mantra once, then keep wiping the first one before Om Vajra Bhumi Ahum Wangchen Sergi Sazir Om. When beginning to recite, keep going, then 1 pile in the center. After placing the iron ring mountain, begin piling continuously like this. I see you, or recite once. Let's do 137 pile, see if you can recite it. Let's try together, or later, you should know the Chinese version. Later, whoever offers in Chinese, let's all try so everyone is quite clear. Is that okay? Many great masters in India often use scripture wrapping cloth with one tied around the neck. Scripture wrapping cloth tied around the neck is more convenient. There are also such methods. We in Tibetan areas also have others, just like this, placing scripture wrapping cloth in front. There are also such methods, but all of these can be done according to one's own situation. Should we recite in Chinese or not? Not reciting is okay. Then who will recite in Chinese? You come and recite, that's fine. If you want to recite 37 piles in Chinese, that's also fine. Still recite the 100-syllable mantra first. We say it's the ring finger. If you don't understand, ask about it after class. Every day we might first recite that I see whether the back is good or the front is good. The front should be better. The front is about 10 minutes or so. During class time, everyone holding mandala plates. Let's practice just now in Chinese. Translated by Master Nengai, before there's one that's relatively common in Gelugpa monasteries in Han areas. If reciting this is also fine. What I translated before in The Words of My Perfect Teacher is slightly different from this. If you recite in Chinese, according to whichever one is fine. If reciting in Tibetan, what we just mentioned, Sayi Buchings, Hirshung Meduza, Rira Bling Shini da Genpadi. Sangye Shing du Mulne Bulwayi, Dro Kunyenda Yang Lasho Parsho. Not reciting the mantra at the end is fine. Reciting a mantra before and after is also possible. Especially when offering the mandala to be practiced, reciting this way is fine. Then tomorrow and the day after, we'll still for about 10 minutes practice together. When practicing, recently let's use illuminating the path to liberation to practice together, okay? Today the time might be relatively... Okay, everyone dedicate merit together. Sunam di tamche jikpanye. May this merit bring all-knowing wisdom. Sunam di tamche jikpanye. Jirgana jirano chupay. Jupun solen roa
Bandarangara Badma Sodargye Bandarangara Badma Sodargye Bandarangara Badma Sodargye